This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have one of my best friends in the world and my guest, McArthur, who is head of the Alabama State Employees Association. We're almost contemporaries. Mac's a few years younger than me. Reminds me of my lifetime friendship with old Steve Klaus from Ozark. I've known Steve all my life too, like I have Mac. And I say, me and Steve are contemporaries, but Steve's quick to say, yeah, but I'm 5 years younger than you. And so Mac's about 4 or 5 years younger than me, but he's still my contemporary. And we're good friends. We talk politics all year round, especially during election time. That's what I want him on the show about. Not so much talk about State Employee Association business, but he has been head of the State Employees Association for a long time. How many years now, Mac?
23 years.
I was going to say 23, 25, something like that. Mac's had a very illustrious career in Alabama politics. He was Assistant Attorney General and DA over in Macon County. And tell our viewers all this, what all you've done. You were head of the Ethics Commission, then you went from the head of the Ethics Commission to head of State Employees Association.
I did.
Tell us about your career, starting back where you finished Auburn and went to law school.
Went to law school at Alabama and finished up at Jones. And during that time, I had a chance to go to work for Bill Baxley as his legislative assistant. I spent 4 years there. And
while he was lieutenant governor.
While he was lieutenant governor.
Not while he was attorney general, though.
No. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and had a chance to be assistant attorney general under then General Siegelman, and then went to Macon County as deputy district attorney, and 5 wonderful years, and had a chance to go to the Ethics Commission and enjoyed that greatly. Was fortunate enough, along with Steve Klaus and Seth Hammond and Pat Lindsay and Speaker Clark, of course, to see the Ethics Reform Act of '95 passed, and then had an ill-fated run for Attorney General, and thank goodness I ended up at the at the State Employees Association, ASCA, and I've been there.
Actually, you did run for attorney general.
I did, and
Mac, I hate to indulge you with this, but one of the best stories I share this, I actually share it in my book about name ID. Tell our viewers that whole story. You got time? Do you mind telling it?
I do.
Name ID is a fleeting thing, y'all. You can have somebody who was Speaker of the House, like Seth Hammond, had 3% name identification. So Mac's story is the best one. You getting ready to run for attorney general? One
of the greatest political operatives in this state, and I think the best, is Joe Perkins, a close friend of mine in years for years. And Joe had been encouraging me to run for attorney general. And you
were head of the Ethics Commission.
I was head of the Ethics Commission.
Gave you some publicity, you see.
And I thought you've been in this newspaper and on this show and all that. And so Joe Perkins comes and he says, well, did some polling and you're at 4.1%. And I sat there and he was real excited. He said, you don't have any negative. And I felt, he's so excited and I'm just completely deflated. And he said, what's wrong? And I said, well, Joe, it looks like I could walk naked through Winn-Dixie and nobody'd recognize me. That might not have been an exact quote, but that's pretty close.
I love using that one. Mac has been around this stuff a long time, like me, and we love to talk about it and analyze it. And let's analyze the 2020 election, Mac. The turnout was just astonishing.
It was astonishing. I have for years, going back to my days with now Judge Jimmy Poole, we would ride around and look at the polls and certainly from across the state hear turnout numbers. And because of COVID, we didn't do that in person this time. We did talk a couple of times, but and I tend to talk to you and my old boss Bill Baxley and try to what do you think this means, and all, and you are so good on that Friday before election call to call it. You see it quicker than I do, quicker than anybody I talk to does. But when you look at the turnout this time, if you look at the turnout in Republican-leaning boxes, it was better than great. It was 3-hour waits, 2-hour waits. Yeah. If you look at the Methodist Church out near Woodland Hills where we vote, it was heavy. And if you go back and
that's Reed Ingram's same box too.
Reed Ingram, yes,
votes there too.
Votes there, and it is representative out there. And by the way, extremely popular and wonderful fellow, friend. But if you look at the turnout, I think across the state you would have to say it was very good. If you look at Republican-leaning boxes, it was just unbelievable. It exceeded what you could have hoped for, and I think Secretary of State John Merrill has done a yeoman's work at trying to make sure that people could vote within the law that's passed by the legislature, that trying to make it to where everybody could vote. And this time pretty much everybody, or 2/3 of the folks, took you up on it and came out and voted, or voted absentee, no fault absentee early.
The turnout was so astronomical that back to your comment about Merrill, he's done such a good job of registering people, both Democrats and Republicans. A lot of Republicans fault him for that. They wanted to be real partisan, but he's been fair and actually registered a lot of people. Because he has so many people on the rolls, even though 2.3 million voted, it was not percentage-wise what it normally would have been, because you really have a lot of people registered to vote. But you're right, the Republican turnout was astronomical.
I think if you look at all turnout, it was very good. But the Republican, as you said, it was astronomical. And
that was, and then the results reflected that. Trump superseded, and I didn't think he would do this because he's been in office and done a lot of tweeting and done a lot of controversial things. I didn't think even in Alabama he would supersede his 62%, but he got 63% and set a record for the most votes for any presidential candidate. Any big candidate in history, period.
I read that Alabama had the 8th largest percentage for Trump, President Trump. And I was stunned at that because of the overwhelming turnout. And if you look at the Senate race, if you look at the incumbent Doug Jones, and Doug and I have been friends for years, and he's not only one of the best people I've ever known, he's one of the most capable people, and of course a legendary U.S. attorney and lawyer. And Doug Jones had more money than you could burn a wet mule with, and ran good ads, well done, and a good campaign. And he didn't break 40%. And I think when you look at that turnout, it was almost the same with President Trump and now Senator-elect Tuberville, Coach Tuberville, that their turnout was just about 63%, and that is incredible. It's incredible when you look at the presidential race because of President Trump and his coattails. But when you look at the Senate race and you realize that the Democratic Party under the what I believe is excellent leadership of Representative Chris England, Wade Perry, Executive Director, they've done a good job. They've gotten their problems fixed.
I agree.
And you look at a good candidate like Doug Jones, who was the incumbent, who had plenty of money, and you still you get 37.5%, around 37%. That's just unbelievable to me. And I think it shows the strength straight ticket voting and what the Republican Party has been able to do in this state.
Well, let me say this: I don't know that it's what the party has done in this state, Democrat or Republican. I don't think it matters, because I think what's happened in the last 20 years, it's not a new phenomenon. If you look back the last 20 years, it's a nationalization of the parties. It's like, it's happening all over the country, but it's very pronounced in Alabama. If you put your R by your name, they associate you with being conservative, pro-business, pro-life, pro-gun, pro-military, everything Alabamians stand for. And if you put a D by your name, they assume you're for abortion on demand, no praying, no military, defund the police, socialization, and socialized medicine. And it doesn't matter if you're running for dog catcher or president, they're going to pull that straight lever and hit that guy running for dog catcher, even though he may be a deacon in the Methodist church out there at Pike Road, and ain't even thought about being for abortion on demand. All he's doing is trying to catch dogs and do a good job at it. Because he got that D by his name, he's thrown in bed with Bernie Sanders.
And I think Doug Jones is a perfect example of that. I mean, here's a guy who was legendary in prosecuting criminals, who is Coach. He couldn't even draw Coach Tuberville out to engage in an election, and it was, and it's straight ticket voting, Democratic straight ticket voting, and Republican straight ticket. I don't know that I've ever seen it to the degree it was this time.
It really was.
But it's certainly, as you said, been a 20-year path.
You can look at the voting results of each county, and it's just parallel. The numbers are just, Tuberville knew to ride those coattails, and he did it. But going back, talking about the party thing, it's a nationalization is what I call it. And I hate to say this, a lot of it, as you know, is based on race. And people keep that, they don't talk about it, it's something that's sort of hidden. But it happened after Obama became president. I was sitting on CBS 8 here in Montgomery, ABC 32, the Alabama News Network, which was my TV home, with Glenn Halbrooks, who's now the news director, but he was the anchor for election night. And it was the night the Republicans took over the state legislature, which was the last bastion. And we're sitting there, and we saw the most popular Democrat in our lifetime, Jim Folsom Jr., go down to defeat DeKay Ivey. And I didn't think it could happen for lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
And every other Democrat on the ballot lost in a governor's year race. This was not a presidential year.
Right.
And he asked me as we closed out, he said, "Steve, what do you see here for the future of the Democratic Party?" I said, "Glenn, I believe statewide races, you can turn out the lights and lock the door. I don't believe you're going to see a Democrat elected statewide." And Walt Matters came to see me when he going to run for governor. I said, "Walt, you got a good reputation. You've been a good mayor. You'd be a doggone good governor. But you can't win as a Democrat in Alabama." Siegman brought his son, sharp, handsome young man, would have been a good attorney general. I says, "Joseph," and his dad and I was sitting there at John's restaurant in Birmingham, where Don and I used to have lunch when I worked for Baxley, when Baxley was attorney general. It'd be me and Siegman and Ted Bryant and Al Lapeer would have lunch at John's and talk politics. And Baxley had an office up there in Birmingham. So Don remembered that. He said, "Let's have lunch with Don. Won't you meet my son, Joseph?" I met with him. I told John, he's be a good candidate, but I don't believe he wins Democrat. Well, if the Doug Jones thing don't put it to rest, I don't know what does. If you can spend $25 million to your opponent's 7, 4-1, you're the incumbent, you run as a perfect race, and you can't get but 40% of the vote, if that much. I just don't. I know the Democratic Party, but they're really a mechanism for local races. Is really what it's done. I know Chris England and them are doing a good job. Terry Latham does a good job, but Terry Latham ain't the reason the Republicans won. And Chris England ain't the reason the Democrats lost. It ain't got
No.
nothing to do with the local party. It's national.
I think at the end of the day, you know, when you had certainly in statewide races, but in national races too, you'd have a party chairman if they got shellacked,
Yeah.
resign. And you think about, well, not only Chris England, there's no talk of that, and he shouldn't, but there'd be no reason because he did everything right.
He did a great job.
It just he pulled every lever right. Doug Jones pulled every lever right, and they got 37.5% of the vote.
Straight ticket.
And
It's a nationalization.
right.
So therefore, when you and I were growing up, we heard this used over and over by journalists, by pundits, and I use it now. We would hear winning the Democratic nomination is tantamount to election. Now,
And it was.
and now it winning the Republican nomination is tantamount to election.
And you know, I think, Trey, you're talking about a generation before that changes.
I think it is. Reminds me of a story. I've never mentioned this to you. You had a cousin named Perry McArthur who was my age.
Yes.
He came to Bowie State. We went to Bowie State, and I was running for governor, and had been planning on running for governor. Bowie State. There were 40 of us running. Every boy who was president of student council in their high school thought they were going to be governor. You know, I did finish third in a 40-man field, and Perry was going to be my campaign manager. They put you in different cities, and Perry was going to be my campaign manager. I don't know what city they put him in, but he came to me as like a gentleman. A lot of young politicians will stab each other in the back like older ones do. But Perry came to me. He says, "Steve," he talked real slow, you know. He says, "We good friends, and our families are good friends. I'm a McArthur, and you know we love each other. I think I'm going to run for Attorney General of Bowie State. And will you forgive me if I run?" I said, "Sure, Perry. God, it's all a game anyway. We ain't really going to be governor or Attorney General. It's just a week." I said, he went downtown Troy. We have a Bowie State at Troy. And the Powell Printing Company got him some cards printed. I'm not sure Perry didn't win that race just by going.
I think he finished second. Made a good race.
Did you know that?
I did know he ran.
Did you know he and I were Bowie State together?
Yes, I knew you were at Bowie State together.
Anyway, back to what I was going to tell you about Bowie State. Old Pete Johnson, who runs Bowie State,
Yes.
was good. Well, one heck of a guy. He done a good job, Bowie State.
Excellent judge.
Yeah.
And founded the drug courts in Alabama.
I didn't know that, but
From Macon County, by the way.
he asked me to speak to Bowie State on the 75th anniversary about 5 years ago, and been about 5 years ago now. And I was honored. It was the University of Alabama. It's the University of Alabama every year now. And I spoke to those boys, and I said, "Well, y'all probably like me when y'all were in high school. Y'all think y'all gonna be governor, everything like that." I thought I was gonna be governor. I was running for everything. I said, when I was sitting where y'all are, shoot, it'd been 40 years ago. Yeah, anyway, I said 40 years ago I was sitting where y'all were, and even if I thought I was a young Republican, I knew when I got ready to run, I had to run as a Democrat. Well, boys, I'm here to tell y'all, shoes on the other foot. I hate to tell y'all this, and I'm not trying to be over pragmatic, but you may sit there, if you're a Democrat from Huntsville, you may think that's cute and good, and that's all well and good, but keep it to yourself. If you want to win a statewide office, you better run as a Republican. Yeah. So I saw that 20 years. That was been 5, 10 years ago.
You were talking about Pete Johnson. He continues to do a marvelous
job. Oh God, yeah. He loves it too.
And
he runs a tight ship too.
He does.
There's a lot of military in that stuff. You know, you make up your bed and you get the merits, and you know you do all that kind of stuff. And old Pete, he runs it. If they cutting up and up there in City 13. Y'all want to go home?
He had. I had a chance to sit in on one of his drug courts in Birmingham, and it was pretty awesome. I think it's a great way to go, where you're trying to deal with the drug problem rather than incarcerating folks.
I think you're right. Yeah. Mac, put 2020 to bed. Trump did good. Carried Tubeville with him, but we got looking ahead of us. And I want us to about 6 months from now, we're sitting in the latter part of 2020. It ain't started yet, but we're looking at I know you and I have seen a lot of campaigns. We're getting some age on us. We've seen a lot of good campaigns here.
Yes.
But I swear 2022 is stacking up as maybe being one of the best for someone like me who writes and talks about it and follows it and gets to do that, you know, as I've ever seen. You got, assuming Senator Shelby decides not to run, you got an open Senate seat. We don't know what Kay Ivy's going to do, but you got a governor's race. But bigger than that, you got all 140 members of the legislature running.
In new districts.
In new districts. Some of them are going to quit. One of them, two of them already quit. Dale Marsh has already quit. Our city ain't going to run anyway. New lines, which makes some of them quit, not run. But you're also going, if you lose a congressional district, you got all new congressional districts, which may change any kind of previous line thoughts. So they'll have to get outside the box on those lines.
If you start with Senator Shelby, who is an absolute legend, I don't think that he's as much credit as he's been given. I don't think people understand how absolutely awesome it is to have the chairman of appropriations, Senate Appropriations. I don't think I can comprehend that. But you can look at the Tennessee Valley, you can look at Redstone Arsenal, you can look at the FBI, you can go over to Tuscaloosa and look at
right here.
Maxwell Gunner, you can look at the water resources for the entire country. But I think there'll be a lot of pressure on Senator Shelby not to step down. Now, I expect Senator Shelby's going to do like he's done his whole life. He's going to make his own decision. If that opens up, that's certainly a huge issue. What you're referencing on the congressional districts where we may actually lose a district, which will throw everything, not only the Tennessee Valley exploding population-wise, but that will mess with the lines, but also the fact that you're going to potentially lose a seat, that will mess with the lines. And then you go to the statewide offices where you have Governor Ivy, who she's been in office about 4 years, considering the end of Governor Bentley's her elected term. And I think probably she is the most popular governor at this time certainly that I can remember. If she decides to run, and she certainly hadn't told me or signaled me she was, but I believe she will. If she decides, and I'll believe that till she tells me different, if she decides to run, she's going to be just a very formidable candidate. I can't imagine anybody taking her on.
So that race may not be that interesting.
I can't see. When you look back at the race, I don't think she got enough credit, pardon me, for the race against Mayor Battle. I think Mayor Battle is one of the most popular, best profiles, substantive, good guy in this state. And he hardly scratched against her. She won without a runoff. There were other candidates in the race. I'm not lessening them, but there were other. And then she ran against Walt Maddox, going back to the D and the R. But Walt Maddox was a quality candidate.
Sure was.
She ain't had anybody scratch against her. And what you said before, she became lieutenant governor by beating what I reckon would be maybe the second most popular political figure in our lifetimes after Kay Ivey, statewide, Jim Folsom Jr. And I don't think enough people have said, wow, if she wants this, she's going to be awful tough to beat.
I think when she would run in 2018, the assumption was she was not going to run, that she might be aged out. But I swear I think she's going to run. If you made me bet right now, I think she runs. But those people like you who have an involvement in state government because of your looking after your folks and everything, those legislative races become paramount.
Absolutely.
They're paramount. And I think you're going to have a whole, as you do any time you have a reapportionment, you're going to have some turnover and some real change in the legislature. And I think that's where the focus will be.
You have, I expect you'll have more money spent on the 140 legislative references than the whole bundle put together.
And here's where reapportionment sessions differ. In 2010, after the census, they had the luxury of not having to run on the new lines of 2014.
That's right.
So they had the luxury of sitting there and saying, okay, we'll do congressional in 2011 because they got to run in 2012, and we'll do ours in 2012 for 2014. This year, they've got to get both of them done in special sessions, which adversely affects people like you who want to get something accomplished for your employees,
Right.
for your members, on substantive state issues. They got reapportionment. They got to have 2 special sessions for new lines under that by June.
And if they have them within the regular, that's just going to cut the amount of time you have to spend on these other issues.
Right.
I don't think people realize how just moving a line a little bit makes a tremendous amount of difference. There's a fella in a race here in town, I won't call any names, but he was postured to run, and he was polling higher than anybody, and he figured out that when they did reapportionment, he was on the other side of the line. Literally, he was on the other side of a street. It was in the city. Well, you have a situation where a powerful legislator, I remember you mentioned Dale Marsh when he was first in the legislature, his first go round of reapportionment. They were not in the majority, and there was an effort to shore up Field Pool. And the domino to shore up Field Pool, it starts moving across the state, and one of the results was it made Dale Marsh's district much stronger for Dale Marsh. I don't think they were intended to do that, but that was one of the dominoes. Every time you move one of those lines, every time the population shifts, every time you have significant demographic changes, it can make you where all of a sudden you don't live in the population center. Right. or the folks that know you and have helped you, if you've been there a little while, they're in another district.
Exactly. It's going to be a heck of a year. We'll have to get together probably in June or July if you have time.
I'd love to.
After the session's over with and reapportionment, and we'll analyze, because the horses may be in the race then.
I think you'll know. I think you'll have a good idea. Governor Ivey can wait the longest of anybody.
That's right.
Senator Shelby can wait the longest. Richard Shelby can wait the qualifying day if he wants. First of all, he's got enough money in the bank to run a campaign without ever raising another dime.
That's right. Maybe he'll run again. Folks, I hate to say it, but our time's up. Our guest tonight has been one of my best friends, Matt McArthur, who is head of the Alabama State Employees Association for 23 years. We thank you, viewers, for watching me and Mac talk about politics, and hope you tune again next week. Thank you, Mac.
Tree, thank you so much.